This week, I was fortunate to have a good friend of mine, Steve Strusinski, out of the Twin Cities, join me on the Great Outside podcast. Stru Man, as most of you know him from the Outdoorsman radio show on Bob FM, is a wild card. He's a character. We share some great stories of the good, the bad, the in-between on his recent trips to Devil's Lake. Share a few laughs along the way. I think you'll want to tune in over the next hour or so as we share a lot of great stories and truly get down to the essence of why we love the great outdoors. So stay tuned. I think you'll enjoy this episode.
You gotta, just being outside, you were talking about Devil's Lake. I can't wait to get back up there because, 170,000 acres of pristine water. There's so many, I just love it. Time to, put it behind us. Let's focus about good stuff. And I said, I'm going to start focusing on the 3 F's and be careful now. No. And I said, it's freedom, it's family, and fishing. And that's what I'm going to think about for the next couple of weeks, couple months. Freedom, family, and fishing, and taking care of people you love and getting on the water. It's exciting. I'm excited right now just thinking about Devil's Lake.
Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of the Great Outside podcast. This week, I am fortunate here to have a good friend of mine who most of you probably have heard before on the Outdoorsman, Steve Strusinski, or as a lot of people know him as Stru Man. He is the wild card for the Outdoorsman out of the Twin Cities on, I believe, Bob FM. And he's been up to Devil's Lake quite a few times over the last 4 or 5 years, whether it's been ice fishing and open water fishing. And we've had quite the adventure. So welcome to the podcast this week, Stru. How are you?
Every day's a gift, young man. I'm doing really well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. I agree. Every day is a gift. And it's a beautiful morning out here in North Dakota. And if I wasn't having a bunch of things to get caught up on in the office, I think I'd be on the water trying to get this podcast done one way or another.
Speaking of being on the water, now, since you're so busy doing all of this stuff, how often do you get a chance to fish these days?
Oh, probably once or twice a week is my goal right now. We've been doing weekly fishing reports, so at least once a week. But as time allows, sometimes I get to be out there a little more. But, just kind of making do with what you can and trying to be out there as much as I can, especially with everything going on right now. It's like the best place to be is either on the shoreline, casting a rod, or just sitting in the boat. And at the end of the day, like we've always talked about on other podcasts with guests, it's not always about the limit you catch. It's just about the time in the water spent there with good company, good friends. And to me, that's my mental reset.
It's not the destination, it's a journey, that. And yesterday, I co-host the Outdoorsman with Mark, Lukey, and Sam Offdal here in the Twin Cities every Sunday night, 6:00 Central Standard Time. And I do a promo for all of the shows every time. And I've already done the promo for this Sunday's show because I'll be in the Boundary Waters for the next 4 days. And I don't know if we get reception up there. And so I've already done it. And referring to something like you were just talking about is that you gotta just being outside. You were talking about Devil's Lake. I can't wait to get back up there because 170,000 acres of pristine water. There's so many. I just love it. We'll talk more about that later on. But my promo, I finished the promo this time. I said there's so much negativity going on in this country right now in the world. Unfortunately, a lot of it initiated in the Twin Cities, and negativity breeds negativity. So it's time to put it behind us. Let's focus about good stuff. And I said I'm going to start focusing on the 3 F's. And be careful now. No. And I said, it's freedom, it's family, and fishing. And that's what I'm going to think about for the next couple of weeks, couple months. Freedom, family, and fishing, and taking care of people you love and getting on the water. It's exciting. I'm excited right now just thinking about Devil's Lake.
Oh, my gosh. We've had so many great trips up here. I can think of all the times that you guys have pulled the boat up and it's beautiful for about 3-4 days. And then I think you guys hit about the state line, Minnesota, North Dakota. And all of a sudden we're like, God, where did this front come through? And it seemed like there was always something that triggered this weird weather. And we'd be out there in 30-mile-an-hour winds trying to just have fun. And, some days we'd catch fish, some days we wouldn't. We were out there in a blizzard. And at the end of the day, I think no matter what happened, we always came out with a smile on our face. And I know there was a lot of laughs that were had. And to me, in these,
go ahead.
In these times, that truly helps ground people and bring them back to the roots of their existence, I think. And just having those moments in the outdoors are really, truly appreciated.
It's all about memories. Mark is saying get outside and make some memories. That's what he likes to say. And you can't. I say the serenity prayer every day, and it's grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You can't change the weather. You can't change whether the fish are going to bite or not. You could have the best fishery in the world, and Devil's Lake is rated one of the top in the country. There's no guarantees. So you better take it with a grain of salt, baby, and have a good time regardless of what happens. As a matter of fact, the worst weather conditions we ever had when we were ice fishing with you, oh my God, it was brutal. But I caught the biggest perch I've ever caught, you know, and I still have that on my Facebook page. It's a beauty. And it was, you know, you just can't control half the things that happen to you. So you better roll with the punches. And Devil's Lake is like it's like anything else. You just no guarantees.
And I remember that day specifically because the four of us, I think we were in the north end of 6 Mile Bay. And I want to say we had been fishing. I'd been fishing there for a couple days and had a pretty good bite going. And then the blizzard moved in, and you know I didn't have a Ranger or anything like that, so we just had my 4-wheeler. And the four of us, we made multiple trips back to the launch, back and forth on the 4-wheeler. And I think we had, I don't know, a couple inches of snow, 30-mile-an-hour winds. Wind chills were pretty brutal. Our ice houses were definitely getting the test. And I think at the end of the day, when we got back to the pickups and we had a couple of fish in our pail, we took a selfie together, and we all had our beanies on with ski goggles to block the sheer sleet that was coming at us. And like at the time, it might be like, God, this is brutal. But then when you get back to the restaurant bar, you have a couple of drinks and you sit back and you're like, yeah, you know what? Some people would have sat back and just let it go by and let that day, but we made the most of it. And you can't control the weather, and we just had fun. And at the end of the day, I think that's truly the most important thing, is just having fun and enjoying company.
Another thing I remember about that trip, and again, we've been up there a half a dozen times the last 3-4 years, and I love it. I'm going to go back. We're going back in August, and we'll see you in August for sure, unless you're coming toward the Twin Cities sometime prior. But what I remember about that is that you and Boomer were so nice to go out. Mark Lukey and I sat in the truck, and you and Boomer hauled your asses out there and set up the fish houses and all that, the clam fish houses, whatever they were. And Mark and I kind of looked at each other and said, we shouldn't be in here. But you say, hey, you guys stay here, I'll take care of it. That was heaven. That made it. We helped a little bit, but that was interesting though.
You helped by catching fish, which was pretty important to me.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
No, I remember another.
And the last time we were there, and I think you might have, I'm not even sure if you went with us, but there's Mark and I for sure, and maybe you were in the boat, and we had the Alumacraft, and it was absolutely the most beautiful day of the summer, and the entire lake, 170,000 acres, was pure glass. We went out and caught some nice walleyes and had a great time. It was just, we put on over 40 miles on that lake that day. That one day, I remember that.
Yep.
It was stunning. It was stunning. So all you can do is say the Serenity Prayer and take it as it comes.
You got one of those like golden ticket, the golden chalice days on Devil's Lake. You know, we don't get too many days where it's pure glass and warm and sunny. And when you do, it's hard to want to, you're up at the crack of dawn, and it's hard to come off the water at the afternoon or evening, because you just want to truly soak in as much of that beautifulness as you can. And I love those days in the water. It may not always be the best fishing when it's flat calm, but you can find fish. But to me, when you're not getting beat up by the wind, you know, last week we were out for a good 6-7 hours, and it was a nice warm day. It was probably high 70s, and it was about 25-mile-an-hour winds. And by about lunch, you're kind of getting sick of the wind. And we came off the water about 4, and we got on them about 8 a.m. And I tell you what, I was just purely beat and exhausted. And it wasn't from, you know, hundreds of fish and this and that. It was just from the wind and it beating you up and trying to keep the boat in the right direction. So when those days come, when it is flat calm, it is just nice to take a little break and enjoy it.
You're talking about you got to take it as it comes. And do you realize, I asked my granddaughter this a couple of days ago, if you stay 8 hours a day and live to be 90, how many years have you slept? 30. You sleep 30 years. Man, life's too short. Get your ass out of bed. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Rain, snow, I don't care what it is. Get your butt out of bed and start doing stuff. 30 years sleeping hours a day. And that's a lot. You know,
that's a third of your life.
I'm one of these guys. Yeah, think about it. I'm one of these guys that gets to bed about 11. I'm up at 5 every morning. That's 6. That's plenty. And they're talking about if if you're going to go fishing, whether it's the Bounty Waters or Devil's Lake, or you're going to go hunting, whatever, you're only going to be there for so much time. You've got to take advantage of every minute. And a couple of years ago, I took my kids down the Cloquet River in northern Minnesota for a 3 or 4 day trip, canoeing and portaging in rapids and whatnot. And one morning we get up and it's raining like a son of a gun. And it stopped and it's raining like a son of a gun. And they're sitting in the tent and I went up and made some coffee. I put my rain gear on and nobody would go out fishing with me. They wouldn't even get out of the sleeping bags. I went out for about 40 minutes and came back with, I think at that time the walleyes were 6 limit. I don't know what it was. I had 6 walleyes within 40 minutes. The average weight was about 3 pounds, and they never got out of bed. And when I came in with that stringer of those walleyes, they went crazy. But get your ass out of bed. You never know. Just never know.
I had an experience similar to that. It was New Year's Day, probably 3 years ago. Yeah, I'd say 3 years ago. And it was one of those days where it was like 5 above. It was pretty windy. We just had a fresh snow. So it wasn't like the nicest of days that you'd want to go pheasant hunt. But I think that year, that was our last day of the season, or like second to last day of the season. So I grabbed Gage and I'm like, all right, got to about 3 PM. And, that's a cool thing about Devil's Lake is we can get on some all right pheasant hunting within about an hour or two of the actual city limits. And we went out on a little piece of public land and, it was 3, 4 PM by the time the sun got up and it was warm enough where I felt comfortable taking him for his safety as a dog. And we got out there and shot one pheasant. And I think the beard at the time that I had icicles hanging from it. And he was just wound up and ready to keep going. And I'm like, I could barely feel my fingers right now. But it was one of those where, February, March, even April, I'm like, I'm so glad I spent that extra day. And, it may not have been the most conducive, warmest of all pheasant hunts, but we got one last hunt in before we had to wait all the way till next October, and just makes those memories last a little bit longer. When I think some of the podcasts I've listened to, people always talk about, you remember when things always either go wrong or you have the harshest conditions, and those memories seem to stick in your mind more than a lot of you had a beautiful day and were able to catch some fish. But when you're out there and you got 30-mile-an-hour winds and you had to switch boat ramps to launch because of the fact that it was too rough to go across here, or this happened, like those are when you really, really remember and appreciate those memories.
Most people don't know where Ely, Minnesota is, unless you're a Boundary Waters kind of guy. But we've had a hunting shack up in Ely, Minnesota, 230 miles north of St. Paul since 1961. And my dad hunted in the woods and slept in tents for 10 days deer hunting in the 50s. 10 days in the winter deer hunting. That's a special guy. So eventually they leased some land. He and his brothers-in-law built a hunting shack on Mud Creek Road and just west of Ely a little bit, and 1961, and it's still there, and it's still in pretty good shape. I've got some guys who came in and helped me fix it up, but it's all. I'll never forget. I could tell 1,000 stories about hunting up in Ely, Minnesota, or fishing on Lake Vermilion. But I tell you what, I don't get up there as much anymore. I've only probably twice a year. The grandkids are all playing sports. It's hard to get them to take a chance and not miss a practice or something. They're concerned they're going to lose their spot and all that. So they don't get up there as much as they used to. And I'm only up there about twice a year. 3 weeks ago, maybe I shared this with you. I went to the hunting shack, and there's a lake about a mile north of Mud Creek Road. It's way back in the woods, and it's called Buckshot Lake. And when I first met Diana, I'm not even sure if we were married yet. I could back with me, my wife Diana, north of the road, and carry a canoe. It's 3/4 of a mile anyway. Carry a canoe back there, not much of a trail, and I had a compass, no GPS or anything. We found Buckshot Lake, and my son, the mosquitoes were treacherous. My son Mike, who was 5 at the time, was carrying the fishing rod and the life jackets. He's crying the entire way. And we went back there, and it's only 35 acres, this lake. Beautiful, and no one goes back there. Well, I haven't been back there for 30 years, and I was up at the Polish Palace, the hunting shack, and I hiked through the woods by myself about 3 weeks ago, found it again, caught some nice smallmouth. I just sat there. It was a beautiful day. I thought, man, oh, man, this is nice. And, everyone's down here thinking about COVID-19. There's no COVID-19 up in Ely, Minnesota on Buckshot Lake. And I will do that stuff as long as I can. I'm almost 69 years old right now. Still healthy. The farther I go, the farther I want to go. I absolutely love it.
I love that. Hey, I got to say, you look great for 69, Stru. I would have never guessed that. I would have never guessed
69 in
it.
September. So I'm still keeping the weight down and still trying to stay in shape and still playing softball and just, I don't know, and act like I'm 20. So that's 15 actually, but you know me.
But hey, life is short. You've got to have that. You just got to be able to keep doing what you want and enjoying it and take it as it comes. Talking about that cabin up in Ely, it kind of reminded me of, my dad and I were out, I think it was 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago on the boat up here in Devil's Lake. And we were bouncing around a few bays and we were mainly just making sure everything worked on the boat. It was the first time out for the season. And we were going in and fishing a couple spots. And like every spot we'd go to, I could vividly remember like, hey, I remember this spot 7 years ago. This was when we caught these 2 20-inch walleyes, and that was the only thing we caught that night. And we ended up catching a white bass to begin with. Or I remember this is where the rod fell out of a rod holder. Like it seems like I can vividly remember stuff like that more than what did I do yesterday or 3 weeks ago? What was I doing on Saturday night at 8 p.m.? But I could tell you what I was doing July 23rd at 8 p.m. I was fishing in this bay and I caught these fish. And so I think I attribute a lot of my recollection of that is just those experiences in the outdoors. And,
I'll tell you, when we get together for Christmas or holidays, whatever, my kids, I have 3 boys and 10 grandkids. And my 3 boys have all been on trips with me. And when we get together, they're all in their 40s, and nobody talks about how many homes I sold in real estate or how much business Joe's doing. And my son Mike's a general contractor. My son Nick builds engines for mud trucks and race cars. But nobody talks about that stuff. All we talk about are the hunting and fishing trips and the stories and the memories they had from 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And they'll be there forever, absolutely be there forever. One of the stories, I could talk forever, but Cloquet River's been dear to my heart. I was introduced to the Cloquet River by a buddy of mine named Joe Bessler. He's in Alaska. When he and I graduated from college together, he went to visit somebody in Alaska right out of college as a vacation, and Joe never came back. He stayed in Alaska. He got his teaching certification there, and he's been in Alaska for 30-some years, 40 years, But anyway, so he introduced me to the Cloquet River, and it's been a great, great part of my life. And when you go down the Cloquet River, there's a couple beautiful trips, only like a 4-day trip, maybe a 40 miles. And you go 10 miles a day, there's some rapids. And there's a dam at the end of this river called the Island Lake Dam. So the level of the water changes every time you're up there. Sometimes the water's so high you flow right over the rapids. Sometimes it's so low you got to drag your canoes through the rapids. Other times when it's in the middle, you can shoot some rapids. Sometimes you got to portage. You got to shoot some rapids. Sometimes you got to portage. The first time I took my son Joe up there, he's my middle son, and I was trying to. I was in the first canoe with my son Mike, and now this is a 4-day trip, and we'd stop at the top of the first rapids, and your heart starts beating because you don't know how big they are. And I'm not a great canoeist. I'm not a rapids guy, but I'm going to give it a shot, And we would take all of our food and everything out of the canoes, drag them down the portage, and shoot the rapids. And if you tip over, you tip over. And so my son Mike and I were first down the river. And we stopped at the top of the rapids looking, so, if we're going to shoot these, we're going to go between this rock and tree, this log over here, and here's our route. You got to make sure you have to have a plan. And all of a sudden I see my son Joe and his buddy coming behind us. They were about 100 yards behind us. And they're starting going down the rapids. I said, Joe, what are you doing? Hey, hang on a second. I said, we got to pick your route. He said, this is a piece of cake, Dad. This is a piece of cake. Joe and I think it was Randy got about 60 feet into the rapids, hit a rock, turned over, dumped everything out of the canoe, including all the food. Nothing was tied down. Nothing was in plastic bags. The paddles floated down the river. We found them about 2 miles later on. It was an absolute mess. And for 3 days, we ate like bologna on a stick because we just couldn't find anything, Yep. And all because Joe thought he'd be a big shot. And we got this on video. Oh. That was cool. I say, you're going to do this. I'm videotaping this. And it's something that I will cherish the rest of my life because Joe, the big shot, screwed up, but that was a mess. It's a story. But that was a mess.
But exactly. And that's when those stories, it's like, God, when everything goes wrong, you remember those and you'll cherish them for the rest of your life. It makes me think about a couple of buddies of mine. We were hunting in Devil's Lake here. God, we were in college and we had this really good field picked out for a duck hunt. And we got the 4-wheeler loaded up that night before and put decoys on a little aluminum trailer. And we're like, we can't drive into the field with our pickups because it's probably going to be too muddy. And but we figured, all right, our four-wheeler should just kind of float right over everything. Well, we got about halfway into the field, and all of a sudden we must have found the softest spot ever. And the four-wheeler buried, trailer buried, sun's starting to come up, ducks are flying. We're still trying to figure out how we're going to get this trailer back to the approach. We're not even concerned about getting decoys out. Finally, we were able, the three of us, able to rock the four-wheeler back out, got it back to the main road, got the trailer back out there. I think we grabbed like a half a dozen decoys, whatever all three of us could grab in our arms, walked down to a spot, threw them out there. And I think we ended up shooting like one gadwall that day. And it was like, that was one thing we didn't want to shoot, but that was probably the most memorable duck in our life because of the fact of we called it the hunt from hell. And every time we drive by that road now, it's always like, God, you remember that day when we thought we had this genius idea with the four-wheelers? We'd just float right over any little bit of mud, and the exact opposite happened and got more of a workout than we desired for a simple duck hunt. And it's just, those are always the fun experiences.
You know, you were sharing, I shared with you the story about last Tuesday. I've had a pretty busy week. I'm excited. I don't do this as much as Boomer or Lukey or Sam Oftedal, the new fourth outdoors. None of these guys, but I'm on a roll right now, and you'd be proud of me because last week I shared with you on Tuesday. No, it was Monday. I had a chance to go. You're talking about the four-wheeler getting stuck. I had a chance to go fishing up near Grand Rapids with a guy, Jerry James. And I call him the backwoods fisherman because he's hunted up there his entire life. He's 55 years old, and he knows of 9 lakes that are way back in the woods that very, very, very few people will go to because it's too much work. And he eventually, over all the years, he dragged a boat back to all of these lakes. And he goes back fishing these lakes all the time and takes friends and whatnot. He's not a guide. He doesn't get paid to do this. He just loves it. He's hardcore. And I had a chance to go with him on Monday, and he was nice. I went with him 2 years ago. I bid for him at a silent auction, a fundraiser with Babe Winkleman. And so I outbid everybody, and he took a friend of mine and me with him. And my buddy's four-wheeler broke down, and it rained all day. And to get back to this one particular lake, you have to have winch on your machine all the time because he got stuck 3 times, and so you got to be prepared. We get back there, it rained it was just a miserable trip. We had fun. We caught some fish, but not that many. So he called me about 3 weeks ago and said, listen, Stru Man, I feel bad about 2 years back. I'm going to take you up again this year, and June 4th is the full moon. He always likes to fish someplace around the full moon. I don't know what that means, but I'm on. So we went up there on Monday, and the one lake we went to is 12 acres big, 12 acres max. And I'm thinking it's closer to 10. I'm telling you. And he said, we're going to catch over 100 pounds in northern in an hour and a half. And there's a good chance you're going to catch a 15, 20 pound northern in 12 feet of water on a 12-acre lake, and I don't understand how it doesn't freeze out. So we get on so I take my buddy Bob Krejci, and we get on the four-wheeler. We're going through swamps and stuff, and we get through that, okay. So it's got to be a mile. And he said, okay, now here's the boat. He had some pallets on all the mud around the boat that he brought back there years and years ago. He said, you got to be careful around here because if you go down, you're going to have a hard time getting out. He's standing on a pallet on the right side of the boat, and the pallet snapped. And he went in up to his waist. His right leg went all the way up to his waist. And I showed you that video, right?
Yep. You showed me that last night.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there, and I'm videotaping this guy. So his right hip he had replaced in December. That was his good hip in the water. His left hip is being replaced June 11th. He has no strength or anything to push with his left hip. It was scary. And so he's down there. It was like the movie Blazing Saddles, trying to get these guys out of the quicksand. But when Jerry went down, when the pallet broke, picture the pallet collapsing one way. His leg is stuck, so he's trying to pull his leg out of the mud. That pallet is pressing the wrong way on it. I'm talking about on his leg and his hip. And frankly, I videotaped for about 20 some seconds. I says, maybe I should help, And it was scary. So I got in the boat, and it took about 7 minutes, I think, to get him out. It was freaky. You never know. And if he was by himself, I'm telling you right now, he may not be here. That's the truth. That's the truth. But and if you want to share that video with some people, go ahead, do so. But it was pretty freaky. So those things can happen. You got to be careful. But we caught fish. I tell you what, the biggest fish we caught was 9-pound walleye. One guy caught a 15-plus inch crappie on a lake that's 12 acres and 12 feet deep. He said he only catches 1 or 2 crappies a year, but the northerns, he says, get ready, boy. Get ready. Oh, he had so much fun. And that was, I thank Jerry James for taking me back there. And he said, you got to promise me one thing. You don't GPS this thing, baby. Nobody comes back here but you and me. Yeah.
You're like, deal. Gosh,
yeah, I'm in. And he's such a great guy. He said he was going to take us for free, but Bob and I threw $100 at him, put it on his car seat or his truck seat. I knew he wouldn't take the money, but he got back in his truck after Bob and I left. He calls me and said, Am I going to have to come down to the Twin Cities and kick your ass and give you this money back? And he says, I didn't do this for money. I said, well, I know that, but I'll tell you what. Now that just means I got to come back up and get my money and go fishing with you one more time. So
that is smart thinking, Stru. But
yeah, that's smart thing.
That's just a testament. I think, over the course of the years in this industry, you get to meet a lot of people. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, there's always going to be, no matter what industry, and there's going to be some people that kind of ruin it here or there. But I would say 99% of the people in this outdoor industry, whether it's fishing or hunting or just trail hiking, like everyone's always looking out for each other, got your back, will give the shirt off your back and not looking to make something off of it and just have someone else to be out there and enjoy what they enjoy so much with. And, I think about a lot of times I have people out fishing with me, and I used to always be, I love to catch fish, but at the end of the day, when you get new people out there and you get to see them catch fish, or like you keep them fishing and you're baiting their line and tying and just doing all that stuff, like to me, that's just as rewarding as if I reel that fish in. And I think you see that a lot in this industry where people are willing to help out wherever they can.
Yeah, Jerry's the same way. We've met so many good people in this industry. You know them all as well, right from Jason Mitchell, all the way down. And 99% of these people give back so much time and so much energy and fundraisers, whatnot, to fishing for freedom and all those other. I just love that stuff. So it is quite an industry and a lot of giving people in what you do, including yourself. And I thank you for that.
Well, I thank you. And, I'm just thinking, you've done a lot of stuff with your sons, and have you been up to Devil's Lake prior to a lot of the stuff with the 4 Outdoorsmen and Boomer and Lukey? Or was
I never was. And I tell you what, my buddy Dave Matheson has been up there 100 times. And I played softball with Dave for many, many years. And every year I remember during one softball tournament, he's up, I'm gone. Devil's Lake. He's been up there, I bet 100 times, and he goes up all the time. Yeah. So, and I would get excited about, he'd show me pictures and whatnot. And I've never had, and it's something that I will do until the day I die. It's that special to me, not just because of you or anybody else involved with Devil's Lake, but just the experience of fishing that body of water and the history behind Devil's Lake, and what you have no idea what you're going to catch, whether it's a jumbo perch or a big pike or a walleye, whatever it is. It's an exciting trip. I will do this every year until the day I die.
It's such a unique place up here, and just you never know what you're going to catch, but you also never know where you're going to fish. We talk about this a lot, how it's one of those lakes where, especially this time of year, now we're at the beginning of June and the water's starting to warm up. From here on out through fall, you could pretty much fish any tactic you would like, whether you're pitching, you're slip bobbering, you're trolling plugs and cranks, trolling spinners and bottom bouncers, vertical jigging. You can catch walleyes and pike kind of what suits you best. And I don't know a lot of lakes that are like that. And I think not only that, but the structure you get to fish where, we've done that before when you guys have been up where, all right, we're going to go do a little tour and you're going to see some of the old flooded shorelines, and we're going to go fish in the submerged trees. And the next day we're going to go fish a little bit further up north in Pelican Lake and look at the old cattails and use that as our structure. So you kind of can diversify your whole trip up here in a lot of different ways.
It's interesting how the technology has changed fishing over the years. Jerry James, we're back at this little 12-acre lake, and he had an old Vexilar 8. Is that? And just wanted to see how deep it was. It's still running, and it still does its job. But he was talking about when his old man. I fished with Kurt Walbeck last week as well, up in Chetek, Wisconsin, to fish and crappies. And he's got the same stuff you guys. He's got the electronics as big as my computer in front of me. My like a 12 by 14 or some damn thing. He's got 60 feet, I think, side imaging on this machine. That's holy buckets. It looks like you're driving a video game. You can see everything underwater, every structure. It is amazing. And Jerry was saying when he was fishing with his dad up in Grand Rapids, I don't know what lake it was, Pukegama maybe is up there, but he said his old man, in order to find how deep it was, he had a 30-foot rope with a little weight on the bottom of it, with knots every 3 feet.
No kidding.
Yeah. So he'd drop this rope and he'd count how many knots, and now he knew how deep it was. Yeah, he did that for years, he said. That was technology in the 1960s.
And you know what? Technology is great, but I bet you that method will never fail you. You don't have to worry about something being charged or a battery going bad on it or anything like that, or learning how to read it. You just drop that in and you'll get your depth. I mean, it won't be as accurate, but it's precise enough for what you guys need. And it's kind of cool just to see how that technology has changed. And even over the last year or so, I've traveled to some pretty neat places and going into some of these older bait shops and noticing how nothing has really changed. They're still kind of what they were 30 years ago. Stuff has still got a layer of dust on them. You see the old mounts in there, and it just brings you simpler times. And I think those are some of the coolest things. And it'd be kind of fun to make a video of all these old bait shops and all these different famous bodies of water, and just to see the history that's gone through a lot of the doors there.
You know, on the Chetek chain of lakes, where we have a place in Wisconsin, we've been up there for over 30 years. And I'd tell you, I mentioned this to you before, but next to marrying my pretty wife, Diana, that's the second best decision we ever did, bought that little cabin. It's been a big part of our lives. Don't know if I'm ever going to be there full time, but it's been a great place. But twice a year, they have a big bass fishing tournament on that chain. And I like to go, I love early mornings, cup of coffee, and see these guys at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think the first wave starts at 7 o'clock, and I go look at these boats. They all have $60,000 boats and 200 and 300 horse engines and 8 or 10 rods lined up on the side. And it is so neat to watch them take off and then come back in. And I know there's a lot of money in it for the big guys. There's a lot of money in it, but I think it'd be really cool to have some kind of a movie sometime about the big national bass fishing tournament on a chain of lakes like Chetek, and have some old farmer who's fished that chain for 40 years with a 14-foot boat, 10-horse Johnson, and a cane pole, and enter this tournament and outfish everybody just because of knowledge of the lake. I just thought, I think it could happen, you know.
It really
technology is not going to put it in the boat, but it's amazing how much money is spent on that game.
It is. And, you know, we've had a few of these experiences in the last couple of weeks where you go out one day and you do really well, and you're like, God, okay, tomorrow we should be able to do this. And you go right back and you're like, I can't even buy a bite right now. And it's at the end of the day, it's still fishing no matter what you're doing. It's not shooting fish in a barrel. You can't guarantee, you can find the fish, but you can't guarantee that they're going to bite. You know, there's so many factors that go into it, whether it's weather, wind switched, barometric pressures dropping, front moved in, sunlight penetration, too much food in the area that they're not that hungry, or vice versa. So no, it's kind of cool because I think on one of the previous podcasts, I had mentioned that on the chamber tournament in Devil's Lake here a few years ago, we had a guy from Bismarck, and I think it was his dad. He was from southern Minnesota, and they had this little, I think it was, I don't even know if it was a lunge, it's this little tiller boat, and it was the two of them, and they were fishing, you know, probably 15 miles from the boat ramp at Graham's Island. And, you know, everyone's got these 18 and a half, 20-foot council boats that can go 50, 60 miles an hour, and they've got this little tiller that can maybe go 20. And it wasn't the nicest of days. And it took them, I think, about an hour to get up to their fishing spot. And or hour and a half to get up to this fishing spot. And they fished it for a couple hours. And they had to turn around and fight the wind to come back to make sure they made it to launch in time. And sure enough, those two were the ones that won the tournament that year. So it just went to show that you don't necessarily need all this fancy equipment. It sure helps, but at the end of the day, it doesn't guarantee anything.
That's a great story. And what's even better than that is knowing people who have that crap. I don't have any of that stuff. And so I'll go fishing with you, buddy, and Lukey and the boys. Yeah, that's and my son Mike's got the new aluminum crab boat. He's got the same one that Boomer had. I forget what it was, but yeah. So I've got friends. I've got the cabin in Chetek, Wisconsin, and the Polish Palace in Ely, Minnesota. You guys can join me there. Bring your stuff. All right.
Yep. We'll come to your place to relax and have a weekend at the Lake Stru, and then you'll come to Devil's Lake and we'll do a hardcore 3 days of fishing, and we'll just trade trips back and forth that way.
If you ever get a time to come to the Twin Cities, or you or Susie or anybody out, yeah, of course, let's go to the cabin and spend a couple of days and see what we have and how we live over here and fish a little bit on the chain. Yeah, talk about fishing on the chain in the Chetek, and this is all over the place. I enjoy the outdoors. I don't take it all that seriously. I don't have expensive equipment. I have 4 fishing rods. I didn't know what braided line was until a couple of years ago, even though I've been doing this radio show for 7 years. And I fished with Kurt Walbeck and Gene Schoenfuss for crappies on the bluegills on the chain of lakes. And then we fished for crappies with the backwoods fishermen as well with my buddy Bob Krejci. And it's amazing how many more fish they caught using the same stuff that I had just because of how they could feel the bite. And I thought that was really, really interesting watching these guys. You could just almost anticipate the bite. And I just wasn't. For every one fish I caught, they caught at least 3. So there's something to that knowledge, and it was a thrill to watch. I enjoyed that as much as catching fish, to be honest.
Yep. Well, and I think about that too. Like I try to get out with as many different people as I can out fishing because, you've got your ways, your methods, and you stick to that usually a lot because it's tried and true. But it's always great to get out with new people because maybe you pick something up from them on something you never would have thought would have been a great idea. And then you see someone catch a fish that way and you're like, wow, that really works. And then you start you just take as much knowledge as you can, condense it into your methods. And I think you grow as an angler or even a hunter or, I've learned a lot of that, whether it's reading topography maps on out west to learn where to look for deer, where not to look for deer. Even shed hunting, that's become a new passion of mine. And just simple things like that, where you want to find southern facing slopes with sunlight that those deer are warming up in the midst of winter, and that's where they're going to drop their antlers. But like I said, the amount of people that you can get yourself together with and in front of, the more knowledge you're going to learn. And I think at the end of the day, the better outdoorsman you'll become. You're
talking about shed hunting and just enjoying the outdoors in that respect as well. When I was with Jerry James, again, I don't want to kick a dead horse, but when we fished for the Northern in the morning, he's fished that lake hundreds of times, that little 12-acre lake. And he had sucker minnows for us, but he had a jig, a white jig, I think? And with a treble trailer, maybe a 4-inch treble trailer on the jig, off the jig hook, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And he would hook he said, this is all we use. And we slay him, get ready. So we hook the head of the sucker on the jig head, and then put one barb of the treble hook halfway back, and we trolled with that. And Bob said, my buddy Bob, who'd never been on that lake before, he was going to cast with almost looked like a bass buster. It had a rubber skirt at the back. It was only a 1 hook thing. A rubber jig with a rubber skirt. And Jerry said, no, we catch him up here with the big suckers. Bob caught many more fish than Jerry and I did, doing something that Jerry never did on that lake. And that's it. Yeah, he caught the biggest one too. Oh. All just casting with a big old, look like a bass buster. If you know what I'm talking about. Don't know the name of the lure, but that's cool. Yeah, you learn.
It is.
Yeah.
That is. No, it's so fun just to have those experiences, and you're like, what the hell? Why are you using that? And then all of a sudden you catch a fish, and you're like, well, I guess I'm going to the bait shop tonight or tomorrow morning to get a few of those because it worked. And it's just that knowledge you get from everyone. And even like when you see these guys that have coffee in the bait shops in the morning and kind of like, oh, what were you using yesterday? And everyone just kind of compiles information together. At the end of the day, I think it helps out everyone. And the more you can learn, and the saying is knowledge is power. And in fishing, I truly believe that.
Yeah. Hey, you were talking about going to shoot, is it doll sheep? What are you shooting?
Mountain goat.
Have you done this before?
Never done this before. So no, yeah, I was fortunate enough here about a month ago. I got notified from the Wyoming Game and Fish that I drew a mountain goat tag for over by the Tetons in Western Wyoming this fall, or kind of this summer, because the season opens August 15th. So yeah, I'm getting really excited, trying my best to get in the best shape I can, because everyone that I told about this hunt said it's going to be one of the most grueling and toughest hunts you'll ever have in your life. And it's a kind of a once in a lifetime tag. So I'm ready to dedicate some time this fall. My fall waterfall hunting in North Dakota might take a little backseat, but it's always going to be there where this tag is going to be there once.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to make the most of it. And the thing I'm really looking forward to this about it, Stru, is not only is it going to be a hunt, it's going to be an experience. We talk about, we were talking a little bit before we started going on air about how, whether it's a fishing trip or a hunting trip, or even just like a hiking trip where you've done in the Grand Canyon, half the fun is just the planning of these trips and the packing and baking lists. And, we might only be 2 months out, over 2 months out from this hunt, but I'm already starting to think mentally in my head, like, okay, I'm going to need a lightweight tent. I'm going to need this. I'm going to make sure I have this. And now it gives you time. And to me, the buildup of a hunt or a fishing trip really is what makes that trip that much more special. And, you've known I've done a lot of Western trips with my dad, and, lay everything out on the pool table, get all our gear, get our checklist done. And I look forward to just the packing of those trips, whether it's a day trip or a weekend or a week long. It's truly what really makes that and leads up and builds that to be the experience of a lifetime. So no, it's going to be a fun fall.
I'm going to the Boundary Waters later on today, and doing exactly what you were talking about. All of my stuff is all over the house, and I got my list. I'm writing all the stuff. And I thought I had everything all set, and I'm looking at everything. Then I realized I don't have any extra fishing line, and I know the other guys probably will, but that's not the point. You can go up there, you get snag, break a rod, do an extra reel, little things like that. And I had an extra reel, but I didn't have any extra fishing line. Well, I think you got to have that. If you're going to spend 4 or 5 days in the Boundary Waters, no place to pick up some bait or gear, you better be prepared. So I'm glad I have my list written down. Hey, you're talking about getting a tag in Wyoming. Wisconsin last year, they have an elk hunt every year, and so does the state of Minnesota. Well, last year, Wisconsin, they had 10 elk. They gave out 10 elk permits. This year, there are only 6 elk permits. Guess how many people bought licenses and they don't get the money back? They applied for a license at $49 a piece. They applied, and it's just they don't get the money back. But and they're only giving out 6 licenses. Guess how many people applied for a permit?
I'm going to say like 10,000.
Yes, 12,500.
Wow.
12,500 people, give or take. It's over 12,000. Applied for a permit to hunt elk in Wisconsin. This year, there's only 6 elks permits being awarded. That's about $500,000, I think, if my numbers are right. That goes to the state of Wisconsin, but it goes to the right places. It goes to the DNR. It goes to out, everything. It goes to conservation, and that's really, really cool. But that's the odds of that, man. If I got an elk permit and there's 12,000 people applying, I think I might buy my first lottery ticket, maybe.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, those odds are pretty slim. So that's how I feel about this mountain goat tag. So it's like, well, like I was telling you, the season runs from August 15th to beginning to middle of November. And, it's definitely a drive out there. But the nice thing about it is it's not like it's Alaska where you have to get a plane ticket and fly up there and then come back. And then where it's like, if you go spend a week out there and you weren't seeing a lot of goats or didn't have any success, it wouldn't be as difficult a month later to just kind of throw your stuff back in the vehicle, grab the tent, camper, head back out there and spend another week there because of the fact that it's 10, 12 hours away and doable in a driving distance. But the other thing I didn't tell you is my dad drew a cow elk tag for North Dakota here this year too. So we got that to look forward to this fall. So we're between mountain goat and a cow elk and pheasant and duck hunting and upland hunt. It's going to be a busy fall, but like you said, you got to do these experiences while you're able to and enjoy it because, someday you might not be as fortunate to be able to. And I always want to be able to look back and remember those days that you could. And especially when I can do them with my dad.
You must have one hell of a good woman.
Well, she loves hunting and fishing as much as I do.
There you go.
Makes it kind of nice that way. We actually she got a cow elk back in December out in Western North Dakota. So there's some hunting in this whole group of everything. So it just kind of is a way of life for us.
I told you, I'll be 69 in September 16th. And fortunately, I'm still healthy. I'm still pretty good shape, whatnot. I still can do the things I want to do. I golfed yesterday. But my good buddy, mine, Jeff Rathmatter, said, you know what, and tell your old man this as well, although I'm sure he knows. He said, the 60s are the go years, the 70s are the slow years, and the 80s are the no years. You better get your ass going, Stru Man. And So I've got some things on my bucket list, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. That's for sure.
That's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah. Hey, I'll tell you what. If you get a chance Sunday, it doesn't have to be Sunday at 6:00, which is. Are you 1 hour different, or you're only 1 hour different from us, right?
No, we're the same actually.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Yep.
Kind of on the order there. That's right. Yeah. Anyway, so the 4 Outdoorsman radio show, we have a guest that I think you would really enjoy. His name is Jamie Huff, Hough, and I call him the redneck fisherman, but he calls himself the redneck chef. He owns a guide service in South Carolina called Redfin Mafia, and had that for a number of years. That's his main business. But he was on Master Chef season 10 a couple of years ago, and he loves cooking, wild game and fish, whatnot. And he also has a podcast now about, I think it's called The Redneck Chef. I think is what it's called. So he's going to be a lot of fun. Jamie Huff, Hough. Look at some of the videos of his. He's a cool guy.
Oh, I'll definitely have to do that.
But, yeah, and he's one of those guys who talked about giving back. He not only he fishes. He's not only a classy chef, but he's also a philanthropist. And I don't know how he works it out, but a portion of every penny he makes, he puts in a pot, and he goes and helps people who are having a hard time. A couple of years ago, he took his crew down to Haiti and helped them restructure after hurricanes or something like that. He also has gone down to Louisiana when they had the big hurricanes go through there, and spent weeks down there, put things on hold with the Redfin Mafia, but went down there, donated a lot of money and time. He's the real deal. He's not a speakeasy. He just doesn't talk the game. He walks the game. He's a good guy. So check him out. Jamie Huff, Hough. Redfin Mafia is the name of his business. And he should be a great guest on. And we're going to talk about the Boundary Waters trip also. And I'm hoping we catch some fish. There's no guarantees up there as well, but I'm looking forward to that. I'm
looking forward to seeing some pictures and hearing some stories from that, because like I was telling you, that's something I've always wanted to do, and we'll definitely make it happen here one of these summers. And I think I'll be coming to you to get the lowdown on, packing and where to portage and all that kind of stuff, and good areas to camp, because it just looks really, really neat up there. And like I said, I've had a few friends that have done it, and I know it's something I want to do, and it's on my bucket list.
I've done it a number of times. As a matter of fact, we had it when my kids were younger. Nick, Joe, and Mike. We convinced Mom, Diana, to go with us one time, and she's her idea of roughing it is curtains on the windows, one of those things. But so we convinced her to go with us to the Boundary Waters, and we canoed across Lake Vermilion, took a truck portage into Trout Lake, and had a great time. Caught some fish, and Diana used to be, well, she still is. She's not crazy about mice or anything like that, but she just never liked mice whatsoever. We camped on an island one day for 3 nights. That was our home base. And by the time we left that island, Diana named all the mice. She was feeding them. That kind of thing.
That is great.
Yeah, it was. So she changed her attitude, but you got to do it. It's there's a lot of world out there. There's a lot of world.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Stru, as we kind of get close to wrapping this up, I just wanted to leave everyone with maybe one of your, if you could give like a favorite thing you have about Devil's Lake, what you love the most about the lake or the area in your recent years coming up here now and getting to know it. Just if there's something that sticks out to you the most.
Well, me personally, it's the people. I mean, you and the people I've met and Woodland Acres and Jason Mitchell and everybody's been so open and welcoming and sharing and caring. And in addition to that, the versatility of a Devil's Lake, you'll never get bored on Devil's Lake with 170,000 acres. If you're not catching something in one spot, there's someplace else that's a little bit different. You keep on trying, it's going to happen. And the whole story behind Devil's Lake is what intrigued me. If any of your listeners have not heard about the background or read about the background of the growth of Devil's Lake, that story is worth searching out. It's an entirely different experience of any other type of fishing, and it's different every time you go up there. It's a bucket list trip for everybody. It was for me, and thanks to meeting you and Devil's Lake Tourism and everybody else up there. I'm in every year. It's a beautiful place.
And you've always got a place up here every year, and you've got someone that'll be out there in the boat with you, because not only did we kind of foster a work relationship, but I consider you, Mark, Boomer, everyone, great friends of mine. And that's the thing, like we said about this industry, is you start out, whether it's a mutual acquaintance and it's a working relationship, and before you know it, we get done with the St. Paul Ice Show and hop on the 4 Outdoorsman with you guys, and then I come over to your place and meet Diana and sit down and have a couple beverages before I head back to the hotel. And I don't know a lot of industries where you get to have those kind of friendships started, a couple of years into working in that job. So I truly appreciate having you guys around, and we're going to have a lot of fun in years to come up here in Devil's Lake.
It's all about meeting people, developing relationships, and that's what I've done, and that's what you've done, and we're going to keep on doing it. All right, buddy?
We sure are. So, Stru, where can people listen to you on Sunday nights for the
go to Bob Total Country. Bob Total Country. Just Google Bob Total Country or My Bob Country. You'll come to the website, live stream it, hit live. We're on 6:00 every Sunday night Central Standard Time live from 6 to 7, and it's an hour of nothing but BSing and laughing and learning about the outdoors. It's we have a lot of fun, and I enjoy making people laugh. So join the 4 Outdoorsmen Sunday night at 6:00 and listen to some of the stories we're going to share about the Boundary Waters trip. And if you've never been to the Boundary Waters, I don't know where you live, whoever's listening to this, try to get to Minnesota and go to the Boundary Waters. It's an experience. It's like Devil's Lake in the other direction.
It's kind of the best of both worlds between those two places.
Every day's a gift, buddy.
It is true. So thank you for joining me this week. And it was great to hear some of those stories. And I know we'll be seeing each other here soon in the next month or two, and get you guys up to Devil's Lake and hopefully find a few walleyes and share a few laughs and make some more memories that we have always done with the 4 Outdoorsmen up here on.
I'll let you know when we pick the dates for August. All right.
That sounds wonderful. And you tell Diana hi, and you guys have yourself a great summer over there.
Same to you, buddy. Take care.
You too.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.